What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining the show tonight. I am super pumped up about tonight's show because this amazing lady that I have as a guest tonight, she spent 70 days in the hospital. Check that out. I'll say it again because you might have missed it, but 70 days in the hospital. And I just want you to know that that is a super long time. And coming from somebody that has spent 3.5 months in the hospital at one time, there is a lot that you have to relearn to do and to overcome after you get out. So I am super pumped up for this, but I ask you guys if you would please give us all kinds of comments. If you're watching live, tell us where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. And then don't forget to give us all kinds of likes and subscribe to the show because we don't want you to miss another show because we're on every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But with no further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Miss Holly.
Hi,
Hello, Holly. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. And I thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy evening to be here with me. Well, it's not evening where you're from, but I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here with me and my guests. So, if you would like to go through a short introduction, tell everybody who you are, where in the world you're from, and what you do, and then I am going to be inviting a few people on my phone so they make sure they see this show too.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure to come and join you and be live on your show. My name's Holly Porter, and I'm a seasoned entrepreneur, philanthropist, real estate broker. I've had lots of hats and still have lots of hats. I have 8 children that are all adults. My baby just turned 29, and I'm not sure how that's
Woo!
possible when I'm only 29. Just kidding.
Add a couple
And
years, right?
all right, we just had our 17th grandbaby, and we've got one more coming this year. So excited about that. Those are awesome moments. But in between that, I've had 11 startup companies, and they've not really any of them been related, and they're just things that I love to do. And um, I just got this great experience that he just shared with you, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. But I live in St. George, Utah, and I love it here. It's a great place, and I guess that's me for now.
Well, that is plenty for now, and I thank you so much. But I would like to extend the hello to my dad, who is watching, a loyal watcher of the show.
Aw,
He's watching from the park here in town because he took my niece to a softball game.
nice. Hi, Dad.
Yeah, well, my niece is a very good catcher at softball, so I'm
Awesome.
pumped up that she's getting to play tonight, and I thank you, Dad, for watching. So, that's a
Bless you.
mouthful. No, I didn't sneeze. I was
Oh,
going,
oh, okay.
but so
Bless you anyway.
as I said before, I was in a severe. Well, I didn't say it on this show, but I was in a severe car accident, and I spent 2.5 months in a coma and 3.5 in the hospital. I was
Wow.
told that I would probably never walk again. But guess what? I am here now, and not only am I walking, but I have traveled across the United States and even some internationally, speaking to people, telling them that they need to make every second count because life is not guaranteed. And I I think that there are things in life that we have to grow through. Now, I
Yeah,
say grow through because I don't believe that we just go through things, but we have to learn something in order to come out stronger out the other side. So,
100%.
has there been anything that you have had to grow through?
Oh, well, this show's not long enough for that. The biggest thing, obviously, was my recent, well, 2 years ago, right now, is when I had COVID and I spent 70 days in the hospital. So, yeah, that was probably, I think I've gotten more growth in the 2 years than I have in the whole other years of my life put together, times two, probably. It feels like anyway, because there's so many challenges that comes when you have health problems. I walked in the hospital completely healthy and walked out on 12 drugs, which now I'm drug free. But yeah, that was definitely something I had to grow through and get through. And coma again, I was in a coma probably about 30. So I get it.
Wow.
We have and scars. And yeah, not fun.
So first of all, I have to ask, there are a lot of people that don't believe COVID is a real thing. And I think that has to do a lot with politics and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Were
Yeah.
you a believer or non-believer in the whole COVID thing?
Well, I believed it was real, but I also believe it was manufactured, if you want to go there. Honestly, I wasn't vaccinated, and it wasn't because at the time I was against it. It was because my intuition spoke stronger than my will. I had an appointment one time, even all set up, and my gut just said, don't do it. And I found out later that if I would have, because I got COVID, my rheumatologist said you would have been a mess. He says, I'm pro vax, but I'm glad you didn't do it because you would have been a mess. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a huge mess. You mean worse mess? Can you be worse of a mess than a mess? Anyway, yeah. So I wasn't vaccinated, but I didn't think I would get COVID. I didn't think I was above it. I just was a really healthy person, and I watched what I was doing and kept my hands clean, and I didn't think I would, but I went to a conference and I came home with the Delta version, and that's at a time when it was running rampant. Our hospital had two full floors full, and only half of them were leaving alive. Half were vaccinated, half weren't. I mean, we're the statistics then. And so there was no rhyme or reason to it. COVID has no mercy. Even now, I'm hearing people getting it all the time. Maybe not as bad, but people are still dying from it. And I will mention that I was so, I mean, it was like the F word in my mind to me when people would say COVID. I had a magazine at the time. I would not let my writers even put the word COVID in a story. So if anybody they were interviewing said it, I made them retract it, go back and get a different word, and virus, whatever. But I was that against saying the word. And now here I have a nonprofit that's for long COVID survivors. So go figure.
Now, are you still affected in any way by your COVID? I mean,
Oh,
you
every
said long COVID. Can you explain a little bit of long COVID, and can you explain a little bit about how long COVID affects you? And then possibly, if I'm not adding too many questions on top of questions, can you say how long COVID affects other people?
Yeah, thank you for asking because so when I was in my coma, I say I was gifted, from my higher power, which is God, that I was supposed to come and start this nonprofit. I believe that is one reason why I lived, is because it gave me that purpose. And I started two companies actually 4 months after I got out of the hospital. I was really ill. I was still on oxygen, and I have long COVID. So a lot of people don't even know what that is. There's 65 million people still suffering from long COVID. And nobody had to be like I was. Like the statistics I am didn't live. Like I believe I am a true walking miracle because of what I went through. People just don't survive that. But even if you didn't go to the hospital, my husband has long COVID and he was on oxygen, but he never spent a day in the hospital. And people have it for 3 days and they can be down with long COVID. So again, COVID has no mercy. I believe in, from what I've studied and what I truly believe in my heart, is that it catches anything on fire that you remotely might have had an issue with. So, for instance, I ended up with rheumatoid arthritis and really fast, like within 3 months, I was like a level 2. And but I had little issues throughout my life. So maybe it was there and it was just dormant and
Yeah.
it just blew it up, you know. I didn't have any lung issues, but I think the COVID did the damage on that because, you know, I've got some, definitely got some lung issues, but the fatigue is real, the fog is real. There's 200 symptoms that are linked to long COVID. So people, they're still getting it, they still have it. People don't know they have it that have it. And if they think about it and go, "Oh, when did this symptom start happening?" You can trace it back and it probably is associated with you having COVID. But
Yeah.
that's just my belief.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I had COVID in 2021, I believe,
Yeah.
in January of 21.
Oh.
And I still have a lot of trouble smelling and tasting.
Mm.
Now, my tasting is back more than my smell, but such like within the last month, my smell has started to come back more and more. Now,
Oh,
some of the smells are different than what they were. But
right.
I can kind of pick up on those now. And it's kind
Yeah,
of interesting that it can affect something such as that.
right. Well, when you talk about the senses, so I tell this story. I lost all five senses while I was in the hospital. So, how that happened was my taste and smell were gone from COVID, but I was on the ventilator. And so my hands were tied to the bed because they don't want you pulling it out. But I would have no desire to do that. And then, so I couldn't feel anything. I'm 90%, deaf from the ventilator. They didn't know why, but it took away 90% of my hearing. So I couldn't hear hardly anything. And then I'm already legally, way past legally blind. So if I didn't have my contacts or glasses on, which, I hardly did in there, I couldn't see who anyone was. So
Yeah.
literally all five senses were gone. And so putting me in a coma was a blessing, right? Because who wants to live in a world where you can't see, taste, smell, feel, or touch, whatever, whatever one I missed,
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was tough. There were many days I prayed to die. Dying would have been a blessing with what I was dealing with. And you probably could say that as well, right? With what you
Um
dealt with.
I cannot say I ever prayed to die. Um I was a fighter. I mean, I still am to this
Yeah.
day. And I don't know. I believe that if I would have died, that would have been me giving up.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person that gives up.
Yeah, I don't give up too easy either. But I had some out of body experiences and some two near death experiences while in my coma. So knowing that all happened and seeing what I saw, it's not the worst thing. At that point, it was like, and I have a bunch of kids and I thought, gosh, I could probably help them from the other side more than I'm helping them now. They're adults and they don't have to listen to me anymore.
Well, that could be a good or a bad thing,
Right.
depending on how you live.
Yeah.
I don't know, but so I'm curious about your coma. Did you have any experiences in a coma or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. I had, so I didn't know what they were all called. I've since found out. and a lot of pieces started coming together over time when, the COVID fog is definitely real. I still suffer from forgetting words. I still have directional issues. But I had a lot of out of body experiences. I went back to a town where my ancestors, a great grandfather lived. I was there a lot. I mean, and I remember my sisters telling me, you never left this room. I mean, in the one hospital I was there for about 5 weeks, and they said, you never left here. They did your surgeries here, your trach, your intubations, everything they did in this room. And I'm like, I was determined to prove them wrong. I was like, oh no, 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 no. I went everywhere. And I did. I always went in the past. I never went in the future. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's
uh,
a whole other conversation that would
yeah,
take way too long to tell
definitely is.
you.
So, you were talking a little bit about being intubated, and you talked a little bit about having a trach. And in fact, I don't know if you want me to say this, but I'm going to.
You can say
Well,
whatever you want.
before we came on air, I noticed that you had a trach scar, and that is easy to pick up for me because I have one too. I have actually had plastic surgery done on mine, but
Wow.
can you tell us a little bit about a trach and how it is used, especially with a ventilator?
Yeah, so I learned a lot more about it after I got out of the hospital because I don't think I was healthy enough to comprehend what was happening.
Mhm.
But it's funny I'll tell you first, when I got the ventilator, they wake you, if you're in an induced coma, they wake you up to have you sign papers. Being a real estate broker, like I call that signing under duress in real estate. I mean, I'm thinking, how am I not? I mean, how is that even right that they can have me signing on my deathbed, right? That they're
Yeah.
not liable or whatever I signed. I have no idea what I signed, but I'd like to see my
Hmm.
signature. But once they did the trach, so they intubated me 2 times while I was in there, and then I was doing well enough that they want you off the ventilator because that's what causes all the organ damage. So
Yeah,
they put the
and
trach on,
your
which
body is lazy by nature,
yeah,
and your body will actually let the ventilator breathe for you.
yeah,
So they
and
have
so
to wean you
for
off of
sure.
it slowly.
Yeah, well, I didn't know any of that. All I knew that if I get the trach, it's good. And so they put the trach in. And once I got the trach and I was doing okay, they kicked me out of the ICU hospital there, transferred me about 4 hours away to a specialty hospital where I was still in their intensive high care unit for about 2 weeks. And then I spent about 2 weeks in the med surge. And that, I had to learn how everything, I mean, not just to swallow, you had to learn to
I've been
everything,
there.
sit up, walk, talk, everything again. I mean, it was, we have muscle memory, and I think it comes back faster, but yeah, I remember hating physical therapy. Why on earth? I'm on a ventilator and you're making me stand up. What is wrong with you? I just want to lay here and get better and put me back in a coma. you know
Actually, standing up when you're in that situation probably helps you.
Oh, that's why they make you do it, but
Yeah,
when you're sick, you don't wanna do that crap. I
no.
dreaded it. Oh,
Yeah.
I had nightmares about those nurses. I didn't like them at all.
You know what's crazy is I have been in physical therapy for almost 22 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and actually I have physical therapy tomorrow.
Well, I'm just glad you're still here with us.
Well,
You're a
I'm glad
miracle,
I'm still here too.
and you're doing great things in the world. I love that.
So, how in the world can you smile when you had to learn to do all this stuff again? When you have to struggle through your brain fog and things such as that?
Well, you know what? To me, I'm a positive person, and I'm not saying I don't have bad days. There's bad days even now. I mean, I'll listen sometimes to the recordings my sister did because my husband was home for 3.5 weeks with COVID, they wouldn't let him come see me. So here I am. They didn't know if I'd live or die, and I couldn't even see my husband, right? They would
Yeah.
allow one person every 24 hours in, and my sisters did 24/7 shifts, and then one of my daughters came and helped. And sometimes I'd have a substitute, come for the day if nobody could come. But they snuck my husband in, and they brought those healthcare workers and even the housekeeping cookies all the time. And so they snuck my husband in, even though I only got one person every 24 hours, he got to come for a couple times for just a couple hours because that's all he could physically endure. So
Yeah.
I think it's just staying focused, staying positive, and just knowing, life's worth living. I mean, there's been many days in the last 2 years because I've had a lot of other issues come up as well that have just been so much adversity. And it's like, dang, God, why did I live to deal with this? Like, this wasn't worth living for. I mean, I've had many of those days, and I feel like there's a reason I'm here. So quit wasting time, make every second count, and get off your pity party and get to work, right? And you just have to kind of give yourself that talk. Thank gosh I have a ton of friends all over the world, because I'm a speaker as well, that were praying for me and there for me. And I mean, I'm sure those are the biggest reason why I'm here. Plus I'm stubborn. Can't get rid of me that easy, I guess.
Yeah. You didn't want to kick that bucket.
Oh, no, not this
Yeah.
time. Not today.
I'm glad you left the bucket alone and didn't kick it, because I think you have something in you that is going to help the world and help people overcome what they are going through in their life.
I
So,
hope so.
no, I don't hope so. I know so. So, what would you tell somebody else that is going through, maybe they're going through the same thing. Maybe they're not going through the same thing, but what would you tell them about their mentality and how to stay positive and stay focused
Well, one day at a time,
one
1
day at a time?
hour at a time, and sometimes 1 second of a time, because I think it's just stopping. My biggest thing that I don't do and I have to work at every day is learning to listen. First of all, to your body. If you're having health challenges, you need to listen to your body, because if you push your body, it's going to push back. And
Yeah.
I went to Egypt last November, for instance, and I came home. I mean, people were like, I can't believe you would fly. I can't believe you would go out of the country. Are you crazy? Because they told me if I get COVID again, it's over. My lungs can't take it. And I said, I can live dying, or I can live living. If I'm
Yeah.
going to die, I'm going to die. So I'm going to have fun doing it. And that's all there is to it. But I came home and I was sick with one thing after another. I didn't get COVID, but for 6 weeks I was down. And so I'm like a little more cautious now. And again, I think it's just stopping and really asking yourself, like, pacing, because with the fatigue that I have, I just don't have the energy or the capacity. Usually like this time of day, I'm ready for bed already. And it's like 5:24 here in Utah, so it's just different. Everything looks different. So I think it's just knowing who you are and what you're capable of, and then don't push the limits to some point, but also listen within to know when is when to not
Yeah.
push.
I like that you can either die dying or die living. And I think that there are so many people in the world today that are just dying.
Yeah.
They're not really living. They're not really doing anything. They're just dying. And I think it is so important that we continue to live even when we are going through adversities or challenges, or however you want to refer to them,
Yeah.
because they are always going to happen. No matter what you do in life, the adversities, the challenges, the difficulties are going to come. And if they don't, you're lucky. because for Holly, for myself, and I know all kinds of people all over the world that have faced similar things, or even things that aren't similar, but they're still similar in the adversity world.
Right.
And so you guys need to look on the bright side.
That's right.
You're still living. You're still here.
Yep. Well, and not everybody got that privilege. When I
Yeah.
was getting a pulmonary test about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was in rehab, and but it was pulmonary rehab, and there was only two of us in the pulmonary rehab program. And I asked the lady when I was doing my test, I knew the other guy that was in it, and I said, "Why is there only two of us when COVID's damaged so many people? Why are only two of us here doing pulmonary rehab?" And she sat on her chair and she rolled it back and turned back and looked at me right in the eyes. And she said, "Because they don't live to need it." And that was super humbling for me that, oh, okay, I get it now, that when people need it, we're the miracles, Yeah. Bless her.
That is amazing in itself, that you're still here and you're living to need the pulmonary rehab. And I find that to be cool. And I think we all need to celebrate that. So if you are watching with us right now, please put a number 1 in the comments. Help us celebrate still being here, still living to need certain things. And I think it is pretty awesome. So I just want to say that thank you so much for tonight, because this has been a breath of fresh air to hear somebody else that has gone through things that I had to go through. And just I don't know, it's just really nice to that sounds weird. It's not nice to hear that somebody else had to go through it, but it's nice to hear somebody else that did go through it.
And
And
survived,
yes,
right?
and survived. And wait, not only survived, but thrived.
Yeah. We all
Yeah.
want to thrive. That's
Yes.
that's what we
So
need to do in life. What does that
I
take?
yeah, I don't know. Wow.
One
I'm
more
I'm
thing. Can I
I'm
say one more
serious.
thing?
Yeah, go for it.
So that just came to mind. There's been a lot of people that'll say, "What did you do to get your health back?" They saw where I was. And I'm like, this is my answer. Well, what are you like if they're having the same challenge? What are you willing to do? Because my list is super long because I wanted my health back. I didn't want to sit home on oxygen waiting to die, right? If I was going to
Yeah.
die, then I might as well died in the hospital. But I lived. So why do I want to live like crap? I want to live and thrive. And so that's my question always back. What are you willing to do? Because even I lost like 85% of my hair. It was a stringy mess. There was hardly any. I had to cut it all. I thinned it a ton because I've done so many things to have it grow back. And that's what I'm saying. If they want thick hair, oh, I'll give you a list of things, but what are you willing to do? Because nobody wants to waste their time sharing what works if you're not willing to listen or do it. So don't ask the question if you're not willing to do the work.
That
For
right
what?
there. That right there is great advice. So what
Okay.
are you willing to do? That's great advice right there. If you just listen to that and figure it out in your life, what are you willing to do?
And you know what answer I want to hear? I want to hear them say, whatever it takes. Because if
Exactly.
that's what you want, why wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Guys, I need everybody out there, including you, Holly, to do me a favor.
Okay.
So this week, next week, and for the rest of your life, I need you to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when those seconds are going to run out on your one life. Think
Yes.
about that. Hey, you guys have a great night. I'll see you back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, have a fantastic week. Thank you again, Holly.
Thank you for having
Bye.
me.